Hey, this is Gary with Jolly Dolly, and I'm going to show you what to do if the winch on your Power Pro dolly goes one direction but not the other. First, you want to make sure that the problem exists on both the wireless remote as well as the wired remote on the dolly. If it is and it's the same on both, then likely this is a relay problem and we'll need to replace relays. If one of these control methods works but the other one doesn't, then most likely you have a problem with either this switch, this remote, or the receiver, and that would be covered in a different video. For this procedure, I recommend you lay the dolly down on its belly like this, prop it up on a bucket or something similar, and then of course you're going to need to remove the back cover. Before you get started, you want to make sure to turn the winch system off. This video is going to cover the replacement of the winch relays, which are located inside this black plastic box. One relay controls in and the other controls out. Now, first we're going to want to remove this box, and we're going to take a screwdriver. There's two screws that hold it in place, and you may need to use your finger to hold the nuts on the inside and then loosen them. The bottom one is a little hard to get to, but if you put your hand like this, you can get to it with no problem. Once you get the box loose, you're going to notice that it's hard to move it because it's got wires attached. So you need to cut any zip ties that are holding the wires in place, being very careful not to nick any of the wires. I'm going to take these yellow and blue wires that go to the winch and pull all the slack and push some of this wire into the cabinet so that I can pull this box out far enough to get to these screws. It may be necessary to disconnect or loosen these to get more slack in the wire. Now, once we can access these four screws, we're going to go ahead and loosen them so that we can get this cover off the box. We call this the winch module, and that's just a term that we use to describe it. It contains the two relays which control in and out on the winch. Some of the older dollies may also have the wireless remote receiver inside the box. All right, now we can remove this cover, and be aware there's a seal in here that you want to make sure you don't lose that. Now that we've got it open, you can see these are the two relays, and you can try to figure out which one is the problem one and replace that one. I usually just recommend replacing both of them. A good way to replace the relays is one wire at a time so that we don't get anything confused. And we can kind of match up the relays and figure out where it goes, and then we can start removing these clips, and we can go ahead and connect it immediately to the other relay. I usually do the big wires first. They're the easiest to get to and the easiest to remove. Now, when we get to these smaller wires, you may have trouble removing them. And that's because there's a tiny little locking pin in there. And I'm going to show you how to deal with that. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see, but there is a little locking pin inside of this hole. So we need a tool like this or a paper clip or something to use to press down on that tab and start wiggling this connector loose. And then when we transfer it to the other one, incidentally, at this point, it no longer matters. There's two remaining tabs on the relay for the smaller wires, and it doesn't matter which one goes where. Now, this one you can see has this insulator on there, which makes it a little hard to get to. But you can go ahead and tear this away. It's not going to hurt anything. And same thing. Press down on the tab, pull it out, and then immediately transfer it to the other small tab on that particular relay. Now you've successfully changed this relay, and you can proceed to turn the winch system on and test it. Okay, once we've replaced our relay or relays and we've successfully tested the winch and we know it's working, we can go ahead and tuck everything back in the box. Then we want to make sure that we're not pinching any wires on this edge. You can see there's cutouts for these wires to go in. So we need to make sure all the wires are in their respective cutouts. We want to make sure we still have the rubber seal on here. Now we're going to put the cover back on the box and start putting our screws back in place. All right, so once we've got the cover plate reinstalled, we do one last check to make sure there's no pinched wires, and then we can reinstall the box. Now this lower screw hole is going to be really hard to get to with the battery in place. You can try taping the nut to the mounting hole and do it that way, but you're fine to just go ahead and install this with only the top screw. It's not going anywhere. It's really got nowhere to go, so that's not going to hurt anything. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lower this in and then put the screw in and put the nut on it. Now I would recommend, if you're going to leave the bottom hole undone, to put a little dab of silicone caulk in the mounting hole at the bottom, just to keep water out. Speaking of silicone caulk, where the wires for the winch enter the dolly is a potential source of water intrusion, and if it does get in, it will drip down into the winch module, and that could be why your relays went bad in the first place. I recommend you use some clear silicone caulk, and you caulk in here and around this grommet and wire just to be safe and prevent water intrusion right there. So that's it for this video. If you need other assistance or you need parts, I recommend you contact us on our Facebook page. You can also email us. Thanks, and have a jolly day.